You're listening to the Why Boarding School podcast, broadcasting around the world. Join us as we promote independent boarding schools throughout the United States and Canada with our invited guests. Now, here's your host, Dr. Jeffrey Quebec.
Welcome to the Why Boarding School podcast. I'm Jeff Quebec, and today I'm joined by the Assistant Head for Admission and Enrollment at the Ethel Walker School in Simsbury, Connecticut, Pam Safford. Welcome, Pam. It's great to have you here today.
Jeff, thanks for having me. I've been looking forward to talking with you today.
So with a wonderful history dating back to 1911, the Ethel Walker School began as an all-girls school for only 10 students in Lakewood, New Jersey. Quickly, the school's enrollment increased, and in 1917, they moved to a larger campus in Simsbury, Connecticut. So for over 100 years, Walker's has remained committed to educating girls. And Pam, perhaps you can start off by giving our audience a brief overview of the number of students at the Ethel Walker School, the grades you offer, where the students come from, etc.
Sure, happy to. And I'll start by saying also, Jeff, that I'm a graduate of the school, albeit not from the early 1900s, but from the class of 1981. And so I just returned in this capacity as assistant head for admission and enrollment 2.5 years ago. Prior to that, I had always remained involved in the school as an alumna and indeed actually as a board member 2 different times. So I have loved this school and always appreciated what it did for me. The school today is different than the one that I attended, and in all the right ways. We have gotten bigger, and we also have gotten smarter about how we work with and serve girls in preparation for the world ahead. Today, we're a school of about 230 girls, and we have added a middle school to our school since I was here. About 40 years ago, we started a 6th through 8th grade middle school. It's small by design, and indeed, it's about 25% boarding. We just added a 7th and 8th grade boarding program to our middle school 5 years ago, and that's been really successful. So that is one component of our school. And then we have an upper school of about 185 students, in which 65% of our students are boarding. And we actually just built a new dormitory and replaced an old one that, frankly, I had lived in 9th and 10th grade. And while I have fond memories of those days, it looks like a bunker and feels like a bunker. And so one of the things we have learned in 2024 is how we design spaces in support of how girls think and work together and how they prosper. So this new dorm is well worth seeing if you ever come to Walker's. So 230 girls, grades 6 through 12, and a PG year for the occasional girl who wants to talk to us about the gift of that extra year on her way to college. A predominantly boarding school versus day in the upper school, but we are in a valley in which there are lots of great kids and, in fact, lots of great independent school choices as well. And the public schools are well thought of in the area, and nonetheless, we have students commuting to us from about 40 different communities across Connecticut, and then we have students from nearly 20 states and about 12 countries other than the U.S.
That's great. And so, Pam, what's the academic curriculum like at the Ethel Walker School?
Nimble and responsive is how I would describe our curriculum. You know, with just 230 students and 185 in the upper school, the question of choice often comes up when kids are moving from their public schools, in many cases, and then wanting to be in a school in which they can exercise choice. And of course, we attend to the fundamentals here. And with a 9th grader coming in, for instance, and keep in mind they're coming from all different kinds of backgrounds and kinds of schools. And while we have ascertained in the admission process that we feel as though they are ready with their best effort to prosper at Walker's, be successful as students, we nonetheless recognize that for some, an American education is brand new in terms of how you learn and engage in a classroom, all the way to there are some American students who've never been asked to write an essay. And so while we see their intelligence and their curiosity, they may or may not have the experience with some of the preparation that we would hope they would have. And certainly there are some kids who come from junior boarding schools who tend right out of the gate to know how to do some things really well, but maybe for the first time are learning to live together. So with all of that said, I think what I would say in terms of our curriculum is to take advantage of our relatively vast curriculum, even for a small school, we make sure first that girls have an understanding of who they are and that they are healthy and happy and ultimately trusting, so that they're willing to take some risks in trying courses that they'd never imagined would be possible. I could certainly highlight a couple of our courses, and if you give me the chance later, I will, Jeff. One of the most wonderful things about independent schools, and I would say certainly independent boarding schools, is that the teachers are given the resources at these kinds of schools, and certainly at Walker's, to bring their passions and to design courses that enliven their passions as they both reflect on what they love to do and also imagine what they next want to do. We offer great professional development to our teachers, and guess what? They are constant learners. So whether it's going back to graduate school or engaging in a deep study in a particular area, they're then bringing those things to their classrooms in designing their courses. So by the time students here are juniors and seniors in particular, although for the arts this would begin in ninth grade, students are choosing from this incredible array of electives in English, in history, in the sciences, math, and in history. I think I already said that. Foreign language, perhaps less so. It's a little more sequential, but at some point you're doing essay writing and literature exploration, even in French 5. And so kids are so excited to align their interests with teachers' passions, and that happens here every day.
So can you talk a little bit about maybe the support that Walker's offers through the Academic Support Center?
Absolutely. And I would say every one of our students, while able and extraordinary, at least in some areas, benefits from what we offer here through our academic support services. Fundamentally, with every student coming into Walker's, we are, depending on where they are in their developmental stage, certainly sixth graders through the middle school, but even those ninth and 10th graders, and then occasionally those juniors and seniors who are suddenly panicking a little bit about the college process. First and foremost, we're helping students organize their time using some basic, organizational planners, for instance, usually online, easily accessible on their phones, sometimes in paper. But we're helping them understand how to seize control over their time. And that is incredibly powerful. And the younger the kids are, the more practice they need in organizing and developing those habits of mind. The older the students are, they find those resources very comforting and familiar to them, because it's within structure and predictability that we can be the most creative and take the biggest risks, which is great. We have an academic support center that's staffed by one full-time person and typically 3 other part-time people who are in various capacities teachers here, and so they understand how our kids are living and learning together every day. Context is important. And girls, knowing how girls think, how they prepare, how they collaborate, when they hesitate. These are some of the coaching offerings that every one of these people are giving. And then they focus more specifically on a guided study hall opportunity for students here, a drop-in where students can just know when they can drop in any time of the day. We have student subject tutors who are available and announce where they are and what they're offering help in every night. I see this come across my email, and students in our dorms can go find them, and even our day students can take advantage of that as well. And of course, in having faculty live in our dorms, it doesn't go without saying that while they are subject specialists, they can be incredible generalists in being resources to any of our students who just need a check-in, as they might do with their parents, or frankly may not do with their parents. And the beauty of living with your teachers who aren't your parents is that students, this is biology, with our parents, we're meant to push them away when we become adolescents and say, I can do it. With teachers who have earned their trust, it's much easier to lean in, and maybe especially with a teacher who isn't one of your 5 or 6 subject teachers, but is a familiar face in your dorm as a dorm parent or a dorm affiliate. And you just go in and you say, Mr. Thacker, I'm really struggling with how to get started with this prompt. Can you help me think this through? So this is happening all the time as an extension of our academic resource center, but more precisely, as I said, executive functioning, subject help, and then eventually, for some cases, and it's not often that we do this, but there is even an outside tutoring opportunity for those students who are really stuck and need that deep dive and partnership in ways beyond what we can offer. And it always starts with the teacher here, Jeff, and I would say that for any school. Any teacher is the first resource and line of defense for those students in that classroom. And then if that teacher is no longer able to help the student because she just needs more time than that person is able to give, and that doesn't happen that often, but it does happen, that's when they will turn to Mary Beth Conley or others and drop in and say, okay, here's what I need. And they do an intake, if you will, and then become a familiar place and face. And that's really comforting for our kids.
It's really great that the students are part of the process. And they're not only can they receive the support, but they're also helping one another out. I think that's what a wonderful leadership opportunity right there.
Indeed. Yeah. And that, I think since you've said that, I'll just say, and we can talk about this again, in terms of being an all girls school, the leadership opportunities here are vast, and we work on that. And remember, we don't have competition from boys. And so there are just better odds that you're going to get an opportunity to lead all along your trajectory here at Walker's. As early on as sixth grade, there are going to be opportunities, official and unofficial, for students to demonstrate leadership. And it's the unofficial that's frankly just as important, if not more important. It's that culture that invites every student not only to excel, but also to bring others along. And that can be in an academic context, or it can be in a social context. It can be through initiating a new club, which one of our sixth graders did this year and stood up in front of the entire school and introduced the middle school literary magazine that she and a couple of her compadres decided to serve up. And in that moment, I thought, gosh, we are only 2 months into school, and she has not only taken an idea and actualized it, but she's now developed the courage to get in front of the whole school and invite others to participate. And that's just one example of, behind the scenes. That means that an adult was listening, saw an interest, invited a conversation for, well, what are you going to do with that? And introduced a pathway, but didn't do it for her. And then that's the kind of thing that happens all the time here. And girls benefit from that extra check-in, and also from the idea that, let's try this, go for it, I've got your back. Like, if it doesn't work out, it's okay, and I'm right here, and we'll figure it out and try again. And for people to say that explicitly, frankly, for the rest of their lives to people with whom they're working or supervising, is a gift, because we do need that. I think we need that permission at some level. Certainly women do.
What a wonderful opportunity for that sixth grader to sort of grow in their confidence and develop at
amazing.
Walker's.
Yeah.
So, Pam, I know you referenced it earlier. Can you tell me a little bit about the visual and performing arts offerings at Walker's?
Yeah, I mean, you might expect, although shouldn't assume, that a girls' school would have a really strong arts offering, and we do. Our visual arts classes are amazing, and we've got photography and filmmaking and digital printmaking and painting, drawing. We actually have 3 AP courses that we offer in the arts, and we are not an AP school for the most part, but it turns out the AP curriculum has become more sophisticated and frankly more in touch with how kids should be learning and demonstrating how they learn and what they want to do next. It used to be a sort of a kill and drill process to take an AP exam and even a course, memorize and then put it back out there. That is contrary to how good schools teach and learn. But we have found in the AP curriculum that it is one that allows kids to be creative and demonstrate their accomplishments in a way that's very rewarding. So that aligns very nicely with our approach here. You'll see costume design here. You'll see ceramics. You'll see a room filled with wheels. And then, of course, dance, whether it's the dance troupe, which essentially is a varsity sport here, all the way to dance classes that are available for our kids as a co-curricular choice, a major theater production in the winter, and then a musical production in the spring. And you can only imagine, not only do we have kids on stage, but behind the scenes, and they're costuming, and they're doing the lights, and they're doing the board, and they're learning often for the first time side by side with a couple of adults. And we couldn't do it without our kids. And the productions are amazing. Gone are the days when we import boys from other schools so they can have all the male parts, all parts available to girls. And, on occasion we may have a special guest star, but the point is, this is giving, we are a creative enterprise, and all schools should be, where we're not necessarily so aligned with what you have to, what you can and can't try out for. And then what am I missing? Music is incredible here. And we have one charismatic music director who is not only amassing and introducing talent. Sorry, I just knocked over my coffee cup. All the time, but then is holding forth, whether it's with our chorus, whether it's with our a cappella group, whether it's with our African drumming group, which now starts in the middle school and continues into the upper school. Adults are involved in our musical program here, which is fantastic. So you'll see an ensemble group, and it's 1/3 adults. And you're like, I didn't know that the chair of the language department was a gorgeous violinist. And in this community, that it not only makes sense, but it feels so good to be side by side. And remember, in a boarding school, we have the opportunity respectfully to see the whole person. And that is a privilege. And it also is an awakening, where kids so often are coming from environments where the teacher is the subject teacher, and you see her for 45 minutes and then you're on to the next thing. And it never occurs to you to imagine, how she developed her passion, much less what she does after 3:00, and what else occupies her, and what are her avocations as well as her vocations. And at a boarding school, we see all of that play out. The adults watch the whole life of our students. They see them as friends, as teammates, as a great volleyball player, a struggling math student, and everything in between. And likewise, our students see adults in multiple capacities, as parents, as spouses, as a violinist, while I thought he was just a French teacher. And that just has us, I think, treat each other with enormous appreciation, but also with great curiosity. And that is the joy I remember from my boarding school time. And I see it happening now as an adult.
So is there any chance that we would see Pam Safford on stage with displaying any talents?
It's funny you should ask, because
Okay.
I will say this. One of
All
the
right.
great traditions at Walker's is the old girl play and the new girl play. And it has me flash back to when I was a ninth grader here and saw the old girl play, at which point there were these, probably 10 skits and productions that got passed down over the years. Some of them have kindly gone away. But, where you dressed up, you performed, and it was all about creating a space in which the message was tacitly, go for it, try it, don't be embarrassed, show us what you got, and we're here for you, and we're going to cheer for you. And so 45 years later, Jeff, that still happens. And I
Very
have
nice.
actually a gorgeous anecdote that comes to mind. But here's the thing. In year 3, I'm wondering whether it's time for me to get involved in the old girl play as now an old faculty member, so to speak, and see whether I might, side by side with a student, or perhaps among a set of adults, do something on stage. We'll see. I'll keep you posted.
This podcast is being recorded, right?
Right. So, people can ask me this if they ever meet me. How did it go?
Exactly. Are there any special signature programs that are offered at the Ethel Walker School?
Yeah, I'm really glad you asked. So I'll talk about a program that runs simultaneous to our core curriculum, and it's called the Capabilities Program. And it is primarily evident in our upper school, and that was thanks to a E.E. Ford Foundation grant for which we applied 4 years ago, and were given significant resources to invest in this capabilities program. And now that we've lived with it for a few years and it's maturing, we think that it's time to take it to our middle school program, and that will be on the next horizon. The notion is that, especially for girls, but really for all citizens, for all people, there is value in being able to demonstrate worthwhile, everyday problem solving skills in service to our community and making the world a better place. So while intellect is celebrated, of course, we also want to create habits of mind through demonstrative, hands-on kinds of opportunities that are life applicable. And so whether it's the fact that every student here would be demonstrating by the time she graduates, and frankly early on in her time here, that she can swim, and manage that, and then may want to go on to a life-saving curriculum, but that's added value. That every student here would take a self-defense class is part of our capabilities. That every student will be a certified tax preparer in her junior year, and a core of those kids with their certification will go on and participate in serving at our storefront in Hartford and working side by side with families who will indeed get money back because their incomes are so low, but who very often, due to language or the just a family size and they can't get away, are not able to figure out how to complete the tax forms. And so our students are there to be their advocates, and we have now a beautiful history of getting money back for families. And the statistic is that the money that they get back is going to gas and going to rent. And that tells us a little bit about the profile of families who are working with our kiddos. And then we have our newest element, and there are many other features to this program, including, by the way, a senior speech, where every student, every member of the senior class works on a personal essay that has some prompts and some expectations around knowing your audience and the arc of the storytelling and so on. And every senior has a morning meeting at which she has 10 minutes to offer a speech in reflecting on certain prompts. And it's a beautiful moment. And, all shapes and sizes, but really nicely done. But the most exciting thing of late for the girls is that we had a grandparent happen to overhear our head of school that she wanted our kids to get involved in the stock market and understand how not to be afraid of money, to be conversant with money, and indeed to use it as an important tool, especially as she was meeting with alumni who in their 60s, 70s, 80s were now in some cases widowed and managing their family's fortune, if you will, and didn't necessarily have confidence or even practice in managing money. And so Mira thought, we've got to address this. And so now we have a grandparent who overheard and donated $50,000 in having heard how many kids were in the senior class. And every student now in her sophomore year is given $1,000 to invest in a portfolio, and simultaneously is taking a class in investments taught both by a couple of our teachers and also some alumni who are in that business. And then they manage those portfolios for 3 years. And so far, the returns have exceeded that of the Dow.
That is awesome. I mean, to learn those financial literacy skills that are so needed, lifelong skills as a sophomore, and it'll carry you right through life. Yeah. When
Indeed.
I think of you
Yep.
sharing about the tax filings and the tax returns, a great opportunity to not only be giving back to the community, but once again, more life skills you're learning right there. That's special.
Exactly. And there's one other program, and there are several, of course, but I'll just name the STANX program, of which we just became a part this year, fostered by a professor at Stanford University who happens also to be an independent boarding school graduate and now is the parent of 3 daughters, I believe, who came to campus this fall and spoke with all of our community about this enterprise. But in the meantime, this summer had begun to work with 2 of our teachers, and then in the fall with our class of students who are assisting him and about 9 other independent day and boarding schools, as well as a number of colleges and universities, in authentic original research in regard to diabetes using fruit flies and playing with genome structure, submitting data as they are creating different kinds of fruit flies that ultimately will lead us, we hope, to some problem solving in the face of curing diabetes.
And how cool to think this is being done at the high school level. It's something you think you'd
Amazing.
only see at the college level.
Well,
So,
exactly. And this is the beauty of this guy having gone to a robust, he went to Exeter and, where intellectual life is everywhere you look, just as is the case in most of our schools, but profoundly so there just because of sheer size. And he realized, why would I wait for sometimes disaffected college students to be involved when in fact the brain, and this is, brain development is such that adolescence and pre-adolescence, the brain is on fire. And this is where kids, if you create the right circumstances, especially for girls, for boys, this is more natural to just go for it. But for girls, you have to create an environment in which once they understand it's okay to fail and in the most sincere way, like only through mistakes do we ultimately gather the data that is going to be effective. And it's going to be a trial and error, certainly in the sciences. And he said, let's get started with high school students because they're actually probably going to be the ones to deliver. So we're excited to see where this all leads.
yeah, very nice. So, Pam, how about athletics? Is every student required to play a sport each season? And also, what are some of the
Yes.
athletic offerings that Walker's has?
And again, keeping in mind the size of our school, 185 students in the upper school and then a middle school of almost 50, we do have athletics for everybody here. And our basic expectation is that you will participate ideally on a team sport for all 3 seasons. Although we don't have a terribly strict requirement as you get older, you can do weightlifting as a supplement to maybe a varsity sport that you're doing the next season or after. But participation is huge. Trying new sports, especially for our younger kiddos, is huge. Although we also know that a lot of our younger kids are already playing on club and travel teams. And I want to say something about that because there was a long while in my career where independent schools, in some cases, were the ultimate destination for the most competitive sports, who might then go on to Division I colleges or the NESCAC schools or what have you. And then that shifted, not in all sports, but in a lot of sports, where club teams and travel teams have become the place where kids get seen and where they get maybe, not always, but maybe the best competition. And independent schools struggled with this concept for a while and sort of rejected that. And in some cases, and maybe still, said you can only play here. You cannot play on a travel team. At Walker's, if we can make it happen without compromising health, community membership, and participation, we will allow kids to continue on club teams and travel teams within the context of our school experience. And that's both for day and boarding students. And it's usually a coordination between a day family and a boarding student who, might be going to play soccer on the weekends. And then they're also participating. You do not get to say no to our team sports and just be on a travel team or club team, but you can do both if we think you're, able to manage all of those commitments successfully. So you may remember, in the fall, we've got cross-country running and golf and field hockey and soccer. In the winter, we have basketball. Oh, sorry, we also have volleyball in the fall. We have winter, we have basketball, we have swimming, we have an indoor pool here. And we have squash, 4 beautiful squash courts. And then and downhill skiing as well. And then in the spring, we have tennis, we have lacrosse, we have softball, and the ones I always forget are the ones that are off campus. So we don't have our own ski slope the way a couple of independent schools do, but we go nearby, which is great. And then similarly for golf, we play at a nearby course. And then in addition to that, you can get athletics credit for dance. You can get athletics credit for theater. And you can get athletics credit for equestrian, and that is one of our signature opportunities as well. About 20% of our students are at one time or another taking advantage of the 45 horses across the street, and they're taking lessons. For some students, that's the first time they're trying this. It does come at an extra cost per each season, but you get 3 lessons and 2 free rides a week. And we do our best to help kids access that opportunity. And some students are finding Walker's as a destination because of the caliber of riding that we offer, which can include for a few of our students, and they're just doing this now, heading to Florida. And some will be there for a couple of weeks, and a couple will be there for 3 months. in Wellington showing, and also continuing in their academic program.
That's great. What an awesome opportunity for these students.
It's amazing.
So we're going to do, Pam, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to continue our conversation about the Ethel Walker School in Simsbury, Connecticut.
Thanks.
Do you have any questions or guests that you'd like to see on an upcoming Why Boarding School podcast? You can contact us directly through our website at whyboardingschool.com. Now, back to our show.
Welcome back to the Why Boarding School podcast. I'm Jeff Quebec, and I'm joined with the Assistant Head for Admission and Enrollment at the Ethel Walker School in Simsbury, Connecticut, Pam Safford, who also happens to be an alum of the school, a proud alum. We won't mention any years, Pam.
Oh, it's right on my name tag, if anyone can see. Yep.
So as we continue our conversation, I guess I'd ask you, what is a typical school day like at Walker's?
Yeah, keeping in mind that we are primarily a boarding school, and of course our day kids, and this is true for all of them, feel as though this is their home away from home as well. So one of the things that we do very well at Walker's, and I expect most boarding schools are taking advantage of this, when you live where you work, you can schedule your day a little differently, and you can start the day a little later. So our classes begin at 8:30. We are a Monday through Friday school. We do not have Saturday classes. We believe in students' ability to play and to rest and recover on the weekends. Unscripted time, how you use unscripted time, we think is really important. I think some schools have Saturday classes in order to keep the lid on Friday nights, and that's not our approach. So we start our day at 8:30, except on Thursdays, where we start our day at 9 o'clock, because most of our kids are on teams. And on Wednesday afternoons, they're having home games or traveling and maybe not getting back until 6 or 7 at night. And we want to give kids a chance to rest. The dining hall, which is where a lot happens in terms of just social connection, a sense of comfort and belonging. Our dining hall opens at 7 in the morning. Breakfast lasts until 8:30 or 9, and then we continue to have a cafe that is open until about 11, where kids who didn't make it to breakfast or who want round 2 can go back and grab some yogurt or a muffin or what have you. Lunch is a time that we are gathering in advisee groups, or the middle school is eating with one another with their faculty. Upper school students, it's more of a cafeteria situation. And then dinner is 5:30 to 7. Classes are on a rotating schedule, so a Monday is different from a Tuesday, is different from a Wednesday. Not all classes meet every day, and classes meet in different lengths of time. So the beauty of that is that repetition can lead to boredom, and we want every day to be different from the next. But there also is something about, I know I have English on Mondays for the long block, and that's typically a time when we're doing some discussion and then some writing in class and just preparing for that routine as well. Classes get out by about 3 o'clock. Students are changing up, heading off to practices. They tend to be on the fields or the courts or over in the barn for an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on whether it's varsity or sub-varsity competition. Games are on Wednesdays and Saturdays, and I've already said that can involve travel. And then dinner is 5:30 to 7, as I said, and that's cafeteria style, unless we're heading into a special annual event. And tonight is one of those nights where we have a holiday Vespers service. Lots of singing, lots of beautiful music, a couple of reflections, and then we'll go into advisee groups where we'll dine together, enjoy one another's company, and then we'll head over to the annual holiday ride, which is choreographed by our seniors, and it's a little different every year, and there's hot cocoa, and the lights go down at one point, and suddenly we get to see the seniors in their last holiday with us, demonstrating some fun that they've been putting together all fall. And then we retreat, and exams begin for us next week. And so this is a crescendo moment before we tuck into our pajamas and get our proverbial notebooks out and prepare. But, I just want to say about exams too, these days of trying to scare kids about exams, or, everyone's tension is so high. Our job is actually to alleviate anxiety around assessments And we do so in building practice every day with regular assessments so that there are no surprises. And then next week we have 2 study days that are in class, so the kids have their normal schedule, but they are explicitly preparing for the exams together with their teacher and classmates Monday and Tuesday. And then they head into their assessments and they'll be departing on that Friday. So we do not believe in scaring students. We do want to give them the chance to show us where they are on that trajectory of learning, and then we'll plug in next semester and keep going.
So it looks like a lot of busy, fun days.
Indeed,
So,
for all of us. Yeah.
yeah, there you go. So to piggyback off that, what are the weekends like at the Ethel Walker School? Are there activities on campus, different clubs or organizations meet, maybe trips off campus? What's that look like?
Absolutely, all the above. And, we have a vehicle for communicating upcoming events, and that is both through our morning meetings on Monday and Friday mornings when we gather together in person as a community. We have the student heads of activities, the student heads of community partnerships, and club heads who get up and make announcements about what's coming up on the weekend. And then we also have a newsletter that goes out on Mondays from our Dean of Students and Director of Residential Life, who work together in developing with our students and student leadership the activities that are coming their way. And the variety is amazing. There are some things that will be an extension of the academic program. There may be open studio space for students who are working on a project. There may be a community partnerships program that's coming to campus where we're working with kids playing basketball or in an art studio or over at the barn. And then there are just pure fun things, silly things, shopping trips to nearby places or the big mall down the road, outings to restaurants. Even as we have the ability to have Uber Eats come our way, there's something about gathering and going out together around a favorite meal. Dances, parties at other schools, and gone are the days where it's the girls' schools getting bused to the boys' schools or vice versa. And it's more about joining with other schools. So we'll go to big co-ed schools or single-sex schools to which multiple schools have been invited, and often around a theme or a special interest where it may not be just social, it may be working sessions leading to a social time, because there's something comforting, I think, about having kind of a reason for belonging and an affiliation leading then to the unscripted fun, as opposed to just throwing everyone in a gym and saying, good luck. Hope you meet somebody. Yeah, and I now I'm going back to my 14-year-old self where, those were, oh my gosh. And those days are mostly gone. The nervousness is always there a little bit. That's part of growing up. But our girls tend to go in groups and not as, one-offs, because they know they're going to have fun with the people they're going with, almost regardless of how the rest of the night unfolds. And that's just an extension of our community.
So Pam, I know you mentioned it a couple times, just to clarify as far as the meals and the all-important question about food. Are the meals served, do they sit down, they buffet, are they required? How does that work?
So most of our meals are cafeteria style, and for the upper school students, almost all the time, they sit wherever they would like, except for maybe 10 different times of the year when we have special all-school celebrations. And there is one time a week when they're getting together with their advisee groups. Our middle schools are more structured by design so that they are meeting every either in the mornings over breakfast or at lunch with their advisors, and they're always with just the middle school except for dinner. And dinner is open for everybody. By the way, our day students are often arriving for breakfast and staying through dinner, but certainly our boarders are here for all of those meals. And we have this small collection of middle school boarders, 14 7th and 8th graders who are boarders, and they are coming to dinner, and just like anybody else, going through the line, and they can sit wherever they'd like. They tend to sit, with each other. And they find comfort in that, but it's been fun for me to watch how kids navigate over time the expansion of their social circle. And so it's a place that's fun, it's lively. We allow phones, by the way, over breakfast and dinner, because we think it is time for kids just to relax and sometimes catch up with a family member, in which case they may go to a table over in the corner of the dining hall versus being with their friends. At lunch, no phones at all. And during the school day, by the way, and phones are a hot topic these days, our current approach is that phones are not, you are not meant to be looking at them when you're walking through the hallways. We look for each other's eyes, say hello. Certainly in class, they're either getting dropped in a basket or put into a backpack, and they're out only if they are a tool for something we're doing in class. Does that require management? Sure. Reminders? Yes. Most kids are relieved that we set these standards. Some will push back, but on the inside, they're like, thank you. And, we understand that, maybe we don't understand, but certainly people my age see the phone still as something that's other. We see that it has become an extension of a person. And it is like, what used to be a watch or a pencil. It is the thing that kids are constantly accessing. And for that matter, their parents are constantly accessing. So in some ways, we have to unlearn those habits, and we take that on at these schools. And we have the privilege to do that because we are a community that at the heart, and this is especially true in boarding schools and certainly at Walker's, there's this basic set of agreements that we have that are sort of up and around campus, but really just we carry them in us, about how we will choose to live and be with each other. And we are communal. And being communal means putting other things aside and being there for each other, casually or intentionally. And that's a life skill, and it's a human skill. And I'm telling you, Jeff, it's one of the things that will most distinguish, I think, students who go to independent boarding schools for the rest of their lives versus the competition. Their ability to write well, be persuasive, make an argument, lead others in persuasive ways, defend a line of thinking, actively listen, include others, and move forward together. Those are skills that are being inculcated in boarding schools every day. And I'm telling you, we are sadly going to be distinguishing ourselves as the 1%ers out there versus so many people who don't have the privilege or the inclination to abide by those basic human agreements. And I get very passionate about this because, of course, the world's always changing, and well, it should. AI, very exciting territory. It is not something we are rejecting outright. We are learning its power, and we want to capture that power. We want to understand it, be versatile, speak that language, and use it to our advantage and to greater good. And so to do so, we have to get messy in it. But that ability of inquiry and then articulation, persuasion, and just to make that human eye contact, those are going to be powerful tools.
Certainly well said, Pam. Thank you. How about dorm life? What's dorm life like at Walker's?
Goofy, fun, communal, and all the things that were true when I was here. But there's probably more programming in the dorms than certainly when I was here, and that's a good thing because back to what I said earlier, especially in those early days when students are developmentally just young. Certainly, we still have kids who are affected by that time that they were so isolated during COVID, and they've had to catch up and even learn for the first time certain ways of being with other people, which is a great argument for boarding school more than ever, is just to have kids learn how to be with other people who may not be exactly like them, but who nonetheless bring a richness of experience that they deserve to know about and learn from and maybe really enjoy. So we create gatherings where it's around food. We create gatherings where it's around a structured event and we're doing something fun together. Again, especially in the middle school, weekend activities are structured and supervised, and they're fun. All the way to upper school students, it's an open gym, it's the pool's open, it's there's a performance on campus. There's cheering each other on at a game. The whole school turns out for a home game if it can, against, any number of competitor schools. And we love being together in that way. But back to the dorm, it really varies from weekend to weekend. Some kids, frankly, need alone time, recovery time. And we honor that. And yet we don't lose track of, and when I say we, I mean adults are there to have an awareness of, when did I last see that student? By the way, we have a whole check-in system here, which is on the phone platform, where kids are letting us know when they've left their dorm and when they've entered a certain building. And while that can seem a little onerous, it actually did to me when I first returned here a couple years ago. It becomes habitual. It's everyday stuff. The kids don't feel oppressed by it at all. And it gives us enormous capacity for responsible accountability here. So that if, God forbid, a fire alarm is going off, we have a precise way of accounting for every child in a way that you can't do without in 2024. So in any case, script, off-campus time, on-campus time, and then when it's tuck-in time, whether on a weeknight or a weekend, certainly, you'll find kids in the common areas, just enjoying a movie together, enjoying popcorn together, being silly. They love it when an adult is in that room who's on duty and is just sitting there, not as a monitor, but as someone among them. They like being noticed. They like being cared for. They don't find adults to be intrusive. They're quite complimented when an adult wants to spend time with them. But we're also careful as adults to give them their space. And we're not their friends, but we are their champions. And I think there are ways to signal that appropriately and lovingly, and especially at a girls' school, although I would argue the boys need it too. It's just that it may get demonstrated in different ways. But it's important that they know that we are there if they need us, and how they need us is different every child. And that's why being a relatively small school is fabulous, because we do know the kids pretty quickly, and we know their complexity, and we know how to plug in. And we don't all do it the same way, but there is this sort of village approach where kids can sort of pick and choose what they need in the moment and find the adult whom they know will give it to them. And I don't mean that in anything but the most positive way.
So in addition to the dormitory house parents, is there also an advisor system at Walker's?
Yeah, so many layers of resource and friendship, if you will. And so the core experience, of course, in terms of who's my advisor, that's the core person with whom you'll meet 3 times a week, including over something called DEAR, Drop Everything and Read, which is a national initiative about relearning the joy of reading. And so our girls will meet with their advisor one morning a week and have a book in progress that is a book for pleasure. And they're all sitting there for only 20 minutes, but re-engaging in that enterprise of reading for pleasure. And usually there's snacks. And then the next ring out there, teachers who see kids almost every day. And then the next ring is coaches, dorm parents, people who are sort of seeing the extended day experience of students. And then the next ring are sort of those more support arenas, the health services team, the 2 school counselors, the academic support person and her team, the trainer. This is the layer of people who are attending to the health and wellness of our students. And then you've got the dean of students, the director of residential life, the assistant head for student life, DEI, JB. And guess what? We meet with one another regularly, and we talk about kids. And we don't talk about them in anything but respectful ways. And it's about sharing information, because in the sharing, we see where there's enormous traction leading to happiness and prosperity. And we also see where there are gaps. And we can identify where a student might be struggling. And then we can figure out, not terribly overtly, but just how to kind of adjust the experience in a way that allows that student some relief. And that collective is a great gift to parents, because otherwise parents think they have to do it all and be everything. And remember, I already said adolescents are designed to push their parents away. And that's how we show we can do it. That's how we show we're independent. But when you have this additional tribe of adults who love the child, honor the child, but who aren't their parents, and if they're all talking with one another, good things happen. And we don't do it for them. Yeah.
Exactly. So Pam, would you say, is there a typical Walker student?
Oh my gosh. Sure, in sort of the communal ways, but if you were to say, I mean, I'll say it. There is not a prototype here. You cannot come onto campus and know who's the popular kid, because you can often, if not that kid, the prototype, like, sure. She looks like this, and this. She's wearing this, and this. And that's what everyone's trying to be. And while sure, we're always looking around and assessing, and it's human to want to know, do I belong? And do I fit in? And am I liked? Those are just natural questions. But the beauty of Walkers is that you're looking around and you see all looks, shapes, sizes, accents, dispositions, and you see that variety evidencing contribution, charisma, leadership, accomplishment in all corners. And so it's not confusing. It's like amazing, because over time you begin to think, I have a place here, and it doesn't have to be exactly like the person down the hallway. And, you would never guess who our student head of school is until you see her stand in front of a crowd and possess the entire community in all of her silliness and creativity and distraction. She has some of the best instincts around what people need and deserve. And I would follow her anywhere. And she's different from the leader we had last year, who's now at Spelman, very put together, statuesque, strong, equestrian, and people would follow her anywhere. And so, there's room to show what you got. And it's not a test. We lean in and we're really interested. And it doesn't look the same. And I think that is incredibly comfortable. Not the way it was when I was here 45 years ago.
So Pam, here's a fun question from both the perspective as an administrator and also as a proud alum. Are there any cool traditions at the Ethel Walker School that may be unique from other schools, or perhaps there's that one tradition that you hope always remains part of the school?
Well, the old girl, new girl play is one that I think just really signals that all are welcome in a really fun way. And I'm hoping, as I earlier alluded, I think it could use a little revitalization. And so that's my personal mission. On the other hand, the school has reclaimed a tradition that elapsed during the 70s, when all structured institutions were being thrown out the window. But they have reclaimed Founders Day and May Day in a way where there is a sun and dial competition. And the suns and dials are our two spirit clubs. And there's a long story about how we arrived at those names and the associated colors. But it is not unusual that single-sex schools develop these competitive clubs, especially for girls, because keep in mind, for many years, there were not interscholastic teams for girls. They were not competing against other schools. Girls didn't do sports. Well, within the schools, they did. And they competed legitimately and in silly ways. And now, whether it's poetry slams all the way to the final moment of the rope pull at the end of the day, which determines, in the accumulation of points, whether the Suns or the Dials win, and whichever club wins, that flag goes on top for the rest of the year. Much to my horror, because it's the Dials this year, and I'm a Sun. But in any case, that is something where the whole school turns out. Kids are dressed up, faculty are dressed up, and we are. It's a long, exhausting, incredibly gratifying day, and it just brings out the best in all of us.
Very nice. So Pam, before we talk about admissions, is there anything about the Ethel Walker School that we didn't discuss today that you'd like to mention?
I think I would just mention our current leadership and recognizing that leadership at these schools, rightly changes periodically and should, because, schools go through eras in which they need to focus on certain things. And then there are other eras in which there are other things that they want to be focusing on, and that's associated with the strengths and capabilities of the leader. But our current leader is someone I would follow anywhere. And she's the reason I actually came back to Walker's. I mean, I will always hold Walker's in my heart. But to choose to come back and work here was actually not without risk, because I don't want to corrupt my personal experience with the demands of a professional experience, even as it is an enormous privilege to represent Walker's. But what I would say is that my head of school, who's now in her 9th year, is a polyglot. She speaks 7 languages. She is an immigrant. Was born in India and came to LA when she was very young, and learned English by watching TV, soap operas, and so on. A voracious reader, inquisitive, a risk taker, intellectually playful, models and possesses some of the qualities that I still strive for, and ultimately, through her own courage and abilities, went to Stanford as an undergraduate, and she didn't do that on the coattails of anybody, and then got her terminal degree there as well, and became a professor at Brown University in comparative literature, and has specialized in Asian literature and society, and her favorite part of the world is Japan. And I'll end by saying that if you come to campus, you'll see our newest dormitory that emanates elements of Japanese architecture, and indeed has used the same wood that many of their 400-year-old buildings have in parts of Japan. So the beauty of a small place is that every individual can have a pretty high touch effect on this community, and I think our head is one of those people who will have shaped us and inspired us in ways that will be lasting even beyond her time here. But certainly for me, inspires me every day, and I think the trickle down to our kids is the same.
So you so eloquently share with us about your head of school. Do you want to give props and mention her name to the audience?
Yes, Dr. Mira Viswanathan, and she would be delighted to meet any of you if you were to come to the Walker's campus. And I could sit in a room with her all day and just muse.
That's awesome, Pam. So if someone's interested in the Ethel Walker School, how might they go about starting the admissions process?
Right away, I would say, either call us because you're ready to chat with an admission counselor, would love to just start talking about next steps. Or if it's more comfortable, go to our website, go to the admissions section, and we've done our best to delineate the steps toward application, or more broadly, the steps in regard to how to become acquainted with us, because some families are looking 3 and 4 years ahead. And so there is, under an event section, as well as a travel section, the opportunity to see what kinds of events are we hosting on campus or off campus or virtually, that would allow you to put your toe in the water. We had an athletics and riding program in the fall where students interested in those areas came to campus, heard from our coaches, heard from a panel session, had lunch with our coaches, and then toured the school. Very sort of non-committal. No one was asking anyone to fill out an application, but just a chance to start building relationships with people here as a way to get to know us. The virtual programs are great. Our virtual open houses are primarily led by our students and a couple of teachers. So the admission people begin to fade, and the people who are living this life every day share a lot about their experiences. And then there's a nice Q&A. We do some webinar sessions. We did one 2 weeks ago on the financial aid process, and just last night, 5 easy steps to completing your application on time. Our priority deadline is January 15th. That's in sync with a lot of schools, a mid or late January deadline. And that's the time by which everything should have been submitted. And then as we have room, and we often still have some room after that first wave of decisions, those decisions go out March 10th, and families are asked to make decisions by April 10th. Thereafter, as we have space available, we continue to work with families. And look, We've got families who are, coming in a few cases from mom or dad went to boarding school, maybe even grandpa or grandma, more likely grandpa, went to boarding school. But that is the minority. The vast majority of kids looking at independent schools and boarding schools are coming from public schools. And so they're not necessarily on our timeline. There is a moment when they have decided, either suddenly because it's just not tolerable, or as a result of an accumulation of experiences, they realize, I'm wasting my time. And if I were so lucky as to have a choice, what might that choice be? And so I would say, no matter what time of year, whether it's calling walkers or any school, you should. And you should say, I don't know if this is on time, but could we chat about next steps? And any good admission person should be an ally and help you through the process and knowing when you could next plug in. And we're always interested.
And Pam, what is the school's website address?
It's ethelwalker.org. Easy,
Perfect.
all one word. Yeah.
Easy, ethelwalker.org. Well, Pam, this has been great. I really enjoyed our conversation, not only learning more about the Ethel Walker School, but also being able to share it with our audience. Thank you very much.
Jeff, you are so kind to have invited me, and I love what you're doing in conveying opportunity to so many families near and far. So thank you very much.
Great. Thank you. Pam Safford, Assistant Head of Admission and Enrollment, the Ethel Walker School in Simsbury, Connecticut.
Thank you for listening to the Why Boarding School podcast. We look forward to you joining us for our next episode. Please remember to subscribe to the Why Boarding School podcast and help us spread the word. Until next time.